I'm super excited about our little yoga short today. I got a couple of requests for arm balancing workshops or asking for tips to build the strength that is necessary to begin to find some arm balancing. So today is all about building the core and the upper body, which is really what we're going to need to be able to fly, to be able to come up into our arm balances. So the flow is going to be geared towards building strength in the upper body, also the core, and then we'll stop the flow and workshop two. We'll do a workshop for crow with advancements into crane. And we'll also stop for side crow, and we'll kind of, I can give you some modifications and ways to safely proceed into those balances. So let's get started. We'll start in Savasana. So that's lying on your back, and I'll get you guys set up, and then I'm going to set up just to talk you through it as you're laying down, just so you can hear, because I don't think you'll be able to hear me if I'm laying back. So coming to our backs, coming into Savasana. Just nice and relaxed. So I even like to lift my chest up a little and then tuck my shoulder blades under. So it gives the heart a little bit of lift and then resettle back down. Thinking about relaxing the whole body. Palms are flipped upward in a welcoming and an opening mudra or gesture. Close the eyes and start to become a watcher. So watching our mind. What's the story that's been happening in there? Is there a story that we've been telling ourselves all day or all week? Is there a narrative or a loop that we're getting stuck in? And start to watch those thoughts. A lot of people refer to it as the monkey brain, that endless chatter. We're going to just watch it. And as we watch it and become present, it just kind of magically stops. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to make it stop. We don't have to tell it to stop. Just watch it. And then start to see it calm. And eventually the thoughts will just start to float away. And we can tune into our true selves, the watchful observer. And if you like to create intentions or mantras for your practice, that's one of my favorites. The mantra of, I am the loving observer. I am the loving observer. We're not our thoughts. That's how we can see them. If we're able to see them and observe them, then we must be separate from them. And most of those thoughts, they aren't even ours anyway. They're not even true. They're just conditioned. I am the loving observer. I'm starting to find a breath. Maybe just beginning with some deep inhales and exhaling to sigh it out through the mouth. And eventually coming into a more functional breath for your practice. Even inhales, even exhales. If an ujjayi breath is in your practice, you can begin to awaken it now. Deep inhale through the nose. And as we exhale, we push the air down the back of our throat to make a sound. Sound has been described to sound like wind blowing through the trees. maybe a Darth Vader sound or ocean waves. And it helps to calm the mind as we focus on that vocal sound and focus on the breath. A few more breaths here in Savasana as we begin to wake up our yoga practice and prepare for the asana portion. Next inhale, take the hands up overhead and stretch out nice and long, a nice morning stretch. Fingers and toes pointing and pulling in opposite directions. Engage into the belly, pulling the belly button into the spine and then lifting it up through the rib cage. That's how we'll engage our core. As you exhale, sit up and find a nice restorative forward fold so the back can round here. Inhale, back to our Savasana pose. Arms can come up overhead. Exhale, come into that forward fold. Inhale, back to our Savasana. Exhale, forward fold. Really engaging in that core. Seeing if you can reach past the feet or at least a little further with every reach. Exhale, come on up. Inhale, coming on to the mat. Take a couple more on your own breath. And this time, gain some momentum on your exhale. We'll cross at the ankles and come around to a tabletop position. We'll start to warm up the wrists that are going to help us with our balancing. So taking some circles, making sure we're rotating both counterclockwise and clockwise. And seeing what kind of range of motion we have, really coming up over the fingertips to get the top of the wrist a nice good stretch. And starting to play around with flipping over to the top of the palm on one side and maybe just rocking forward and back or continuing your circles. Continuing your nice steady breath. And take the opposite hand, flip the palm over. Flipping it back over. A couple more circles. Maybe even some barrel rolls through the chest, getting the shoulders involved. Moving with breath. We'll find a neutral spine and take some cat and cow. So on an inhale, drop the belly and release the chin. Exhale, tuck the chin, round out the back. Inhale, back to cow. Exhale for cats. You'll notice most of my flows always begin with some cat and cow. That's just to warm up the spine and start some blood flow so that we don't get any injuries. One more. And then coming into a neutral spine. We'll tuck the toes and hover the knees off the mat. Squeezing everything in towards the midline. Lift through the pelvic floor, lift the core, press through the fingertips, triceps are engaged. Our gaze is right between our hands, focusing on our breath. On an exhale, step one foot to the back of the mat and then the other until you're in a high push-up. And shift forward onto the fingertips. Make the decision if you'd like to keep your knees lifted or set them down. We're going to lower to a chaturanga. So if you find that you're having trouble controlling it and maybe coming past the 90 degrees, come to this modified where we're putting our knees on the ground because we'll build way more strength that way. So whatever you've decided to take, on an exhale, lower to a 90-degree chaturanga. Inhale, take it back up. Exhale, draw those knees back into a hover and set them down. 2 rounds of cat and cow. Inhale for a cow. Exhale for cat. Inhale, find your cow, drop the belly, pulling the crown of the head and the sitting bones up to the sky. Exhale to round. And finding that neutral spine again, tuck the toes and lift the knees. We'll take the same sequence. So this could be quite passive if we're not squeezing. We want to make sure everything is fully engaged so we're getting a really good workout here. Exhale, step the right foot to the back of the mat, and then the left. Shift forward onto the fingertips, lower to your chaturanga. Inhale, take it back up. Draw those knees back underneath us, still hovered for our tabletop, and set them down. 2 rounds of cat and cow. Inhale for a cow. Exhale for a cat. Inhale for a cow. Exhale, last cat. Last time, find that neutral spine. Tuck the toes, find your hover, squeezing everything in. Firm up the glutes, firm up the triceps. Really engaging through the core. Exhale, take both feet to the back of the mat. Shift forward, find your chaturanga. Inhale, take it back up. Exhale, knees come to a hover. And set them back down. 2 rounds of cat and cow. We'll go ahead and sit back on the heels. And you can send the knees wide or keep them together. So if you keep them together, we're going to feel it more in the low back. If you send them wide, you're going to feel this child's pose more in the hips. So finding our child's pose, forehead comes to the mat. We'll take the hands to a prayer and then take the hands right at the nape of the neck. Nice little tricep stretch to alleviate all that work we just did. Deep breaths. Draw the biceps down to the mat to feel it more in your triceps and to feel more of a stretch. On an inhale, we'll start to rise, passing through that tabletop. Tuck the toes, lift the hips, and find your downward facing dog. Starting to pedal it out, waking up the dog. One heel comes up and then the other. Maybe we do some shoulder rolls, pulling the shoulders up and then sending the shoulder blades down the back. And when you're ready, you can step or hop the feet to the top of the mat. And on an inhale, we'll start to slowly roll up and find our mountain pose. Our chin stays tucked the whole time. It's the last to lift. I'm going to scoot back so you can see. Inhale, sweep up the arms. Exhale, swan dive down towards the toes. Inhale, halfway lift, pulling the crown of the head away from the shoulders and the shoulders away from the hips. Keep all that length and exhale, fold. So you can bend the knees if the hamstrings are a little tight, folding everything in. Option to take a bind. You can bind onto the big toes with the peace fingers, or maybe even find gorilla, taking the palms underneath the feet all the way to the wrists. If you've taken a bind, we'll inhale and lift up halfway a little more. Create that space, create the length, and then refold. Send the elbows out wide. Pull into the bind. Yeses and nos with the head. Making sure our neck is released. No tension in the face. Relax the jaw. Two more breaths here. Starting to release the bind if you've taken one. And shift the weight to the hands. And you can step back to a high plank or hop through to chaturanga. Lower through chaturanga. Inhale, up dog or cobra. And exhale, downward facing dog. Three breaths here. We're really pressing through the fingertips. Hips are high, spine is flat, broadening through the shoulders. Belly button is pressing towards the spine, core is engaged, pelvic floor lifted. We're gonna come onto the toes and then bend the knees, send the knees wide, and we're gonna hop them to the outsides of the mat. Find a yogi squat. Elbows come to the insides of the knees, pressing them open wide. You can find stillness or maybe sway from side to side, opening up the hips. And maybe close the eyes. Let's take some big breaths here. So inhaling through the nose. Fill up the whole body from the head to the toes. Feel the oxygen in each fingertip, in each muscle, in each cell. And as you exhale, release it all through the mouth. One more deep inhale. Fill it up. And sigh it out. If you've closed your eyes, go ahead and blink them open. So we're gonna stop our flow for now and we'll take a little workshop for a crow. So if you've never done crow before, or even if you have, one of the biggest tips that I have is hand placement. So we wanna make sure that we're really spreading our fingertips wide. This is not going to be nearly as much surface area to balance upon as this will be. So nice wide fingers. The other thing about the hands is we want to make sure that we're not coming down on a flat palm, that the palm is actually lifted and we're pressing through the fingertips to create that lift. It's going to help to be able to tweak and balance and shift as we need to be able to hold our crow. So now that we've talked about the hands, I'm going to go over a couple things for if it's new in your practice, some tips to kind of explore and come into it. And then if it's already in your practice, I'm gonna give you a couple ways that you could advance it. So for the beginners, we're gonna go ahead and shift our hips and our knees forward, squaring off. And we're gonna work to stack up. Actually, before you even do this, if you're brand new, you may even want to create for yourself a little crash pad. So grabbing a pillow or a bunch of blankets, stick it under your head. You've just created an insurance policy for yourself. 1 second, my little screen's messing up. There we go. So if you're new, that's gonna be your best friend. It'll give you way more confidence to be able to put weight into your hands. I'm gonna move it just so you can see my hands. So we're gonna create a shelf by bending our elbows, and we're working to stack our knees on top of our triceps. So depending on how comfortable you are with this, you may start at the middle of your tricep, but eventually we're working all the way into the armpit. So if you're new, again, we've created that space between our fingers, our palms are lifted, and then we stack. Now the other important part is gonna be your gaze. So you're gonna look down between your hands, wherever your head ends up, and then go about 6 inches out in front of it. So about half a foot out in front of it, because we really want to project forward, not down. So don't stare down, stare about 6 inches or so away from the top of your mat. So we've created this shelf, and we'll start to put some weight into our triceps. So my palms are lifted, and then maybe you just start to try to pick up one foot, and then the other, and then maybe you pick up one, but you stay up tippy top and maybe just kind of tap the other one down to feel what it feels like to kind of fly into your hands. And eventually, if it feels comfortable, you can take both feet off and fly. So that's one option. Another really great beginner option is instead of stacking our knees on our triceps, is to press them on the outside. So we're squeezing our own triceps in, and it's actually gonna be really helpful because we wanna keep our elbows squeezing in towards the midline anyway. So again, you can try this. Instead of stacking them here, you're gonna come to the outside. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze like crazy, and then start to shift your weight forward. Pull your heart forward. Gaze is there as well. And then setting back down. Okay, so if crow is already in your practice, and you'd like a couple tips to maybe take it a little further, I'm gonna turn this way so you can hopefully see a little, is instead of having our hands down and then now we stack one at a time our knees, we're gonna go ahead and start our knees in basically our armpits. And then now instead of being a stacker, we're kind of one unit, right? So, knees in the armpits, palms are lifted, pelvic floor is lifted. Then we start to shift forward and really pull the heels up into the glutes. You can even start to straighten the arms and working into our crane pose. There we go. I'm going to kind of play around with that for a little bit. If you have any questions, comments, drop them in the comment section. I would love to help you find this one. It was an enigma for me for the longest time. And those couple little things really helped. And I would love to be able to help you through it as well. So another thing that you could advance if you are feeling comfortable in crow is a jump back. So you want to do this one with fresh crow arms. If you've already been holding your crow for like 5 breaths, it's going to be pretty tiring for you to hop back. So maybe just 1 breath in crow and then you can jump back. So when we jump back, we're talking about jumping back into chaturanga. So our elbows are bent, we're not jumping back into a high push-up. That's going to put a lot of strain on the old elbows. So for a jump back, if you'd like to kind of play around with this, I'll show you one. You'll find your crow, lifting through the pelvic floor, and then you're going to send those feet to the back of the mat, coming into those chaturanga arms, and take the rest of your vinyasa. And we'll meet back in downward facing dog. A couple breaths here. And go ahead and come onto the toes, bend through the knees, and step or hop the feet to the top of the mat. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, Utkatasana, chair pose. So for chair pose, we're kind of floating the toes. See if you can wiggle the toes, because our weight is going to be back on our heels. Heart is lifted. With every exhale, we'll see if we can lower a little more. Inhale, lift the heart. Lift the gaze, even lift the crown of the head. Exhale, lower the hands to the heart. Inhale, pull the heart up into the hands. Exhale, take a twist. Left elbow is going to come to the outside of the right quad. Take a moment to really hook it in there good, because that's going to give you the leverage to really find your twist. So option to stay right here if this twist is just feeling really nice, or I'm going to show you a side crow. So if you're coming down to side crow, you're going to come kind of to an ankle balance, and you're going to reach the hands around. Now this is going to be the most important tip. Maybe I should face this way so you can see. So let's pretend I'm at the top of my mat, reaching around for that back corner. All 10 fingers are going to be facing in the same direction. So we don't want one here and then this one's like this, right? We want them all the same direction. And the more you can get into this twist, the easier side crow is going to be for you. So once our fingers are all pointing towards the back corner of our mat, we'll start to bend at the elbows, creating a shelf. Sorry, there's an airplane going over right now. So on the shelf, you can place your thigh to begin with, or maybe you eventually start to float it over your rib cage. So if you're using the thigh, our ear is going to face down towards the mat, and then our toes lift. Notice my palms are lifted, I'm on the fingertips, and I'm balancing. And bring it back down. Everybody can try that really quick. A little modification I love to use for side crow is to come down into a fallen angel. So your ear, or actually you're going to be your temple, can come down to the mat, and it's going to give you a third point of contact. So you can kind of play around from there. It'll look like this. And now, it's not so scary, right? Because I have 3 points of contact. I'm not going to fall. And then you can kind of play around with like messing with your legs, finding a split, and then pushing back up to your side crow. Cool. So we will all meet back in our twist. Inhale, back to chair. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. So as you exhale, you can choose to step back into your high plank, or maybe you try a jump back from here. So we jump back again to bent arms, chaturanga. Inhale for up dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Take a few breaths. Inhale to come onto the toes. Exhale, bend the knees and step or hop them to the top of the mat. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, Utkatasana, chair pose. Send the weight to the heels, flutter up the toes. Sit down a little more. And exhale, lower the hands to the heart. Inhale, pick the heart up into the hands. Exhale, take your twist, hooking that left elbow on the outside, or I'm sorry, the right elbow on the outside of the left quad. Gaze over the shoulder. Stay here or find your side crow on the opposite side. So I'll lead you through it, coming down to your ankle balance. Hands come around. All fingers are pointed to the same direction, that back corner of the mat. Put some bend, create your shelf. Float up the palms of your hand and find your balance. Give you a second while I catch my breath as I'm talking and doing these things. So when you're ready, we'll all meet back in that twist. Inhale, back to chair. This time as we exhale, we're gonna lower the hips all the way to the ground, come to a low boat. So you can hold here, maybe you find some flutter kicks. Inhale, send that right leg high, and we'll interlace the fingers behind the thigh. Flip the grip around and reach up tall. Holding that belly in nice and tight, toes are pointed or flexed, just engaged in some way. Hold, hold, hold. Release your grip, lower. And this time find your flutter kicks again, or maybe you find some scissors. We're working to build that core strength. And coming back to our low boat, left leg comes high. Pointing both toes, go ahead and take a bind behind that left leg. Flip the palms, reach up high. Inhale, reach a little higher. Exhale to lower. Inhale, high boat. Projecting the heart up and forward, hold here. Maybe even think about straightening out the legs. Can't see my face if I do that. That'll be my excuse. Back down to low boat. Back for our low boat, our low back is pressing into the mat, shoulders are lifted. Exhale, come back to high. Inhale to low. Exhale to high. Inhale to low. Exhale, high. Inhale, low. Exhale, high. Cross the feet. See if you can try a hop back into that chaturanga. Inhale, up dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Shift forward to high push-up. We're gonna slow it down, lower all the way down to the mat, hugging those elbows in nice and tight. We'll take some counter stretching. So we built strength in the core. Let's also work for the back. Reach the hands out nice and long. We'll take locust. So when an inhale, we'll lift the feet and the hands up high. See how high you can get up. And then maybe even start to find some flutter kicks. Exhale to lower. Send the arms out in a wide T. Bend through that left knee and send the foot up and over the right leg, coming onto the right shoulder. So our arm, we want it to be nice and horizontal. It's not gonna be down here. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's gonna be an extension of your shoulder, so in a T. Reach up, allow that knee to open up so you're coming onto the right shoulder, getting a nice stretch. If you'd like more of a stretch, you can start to track the knee towards the sky or open up the left arm. Maybe find a bind if you're super flexible. And exhale, come back down to the mat. This time, left cheek comes to the mat. Right knee is going to bend. We'll send it up and over the left leg, rolling onto that left shoulder and tracking the knee to the sky. The right arm can float if it feels nice, or it can press down against the mat to give you more support. Exhale, come back down to the mat. We'll find our Savasana. You can take one last sun salutation or vinyasa to get there, or you can meet me right there. It's exactly how we started, laying on our backs. Eyes closed. Take some big breaths. Fill your body with oxygen. It's what it requires. Allow the mind to soften, the muscles to soften. Enter into your Savasana, where all you have to do is just be. We worked hard. Now it's time to rest and heal. Stay here for at least 20 breaths. And enjoy. Namaste, friends.